Welcome to Untangled and our section with just young theologians and thinkers who are thinking about God. I'm honored today to have Miss Trinity with me today. And so I thought we would just do a question and answer session. We've been having, before the recording has started, we've been having like some super deep, amazing conversations. And we've covered all kinds of things from contentment in life and pressure and heaven and all kinds of things like that. And so I thought, let's just keep the conversation going. And so I thought, let's just do an open Q&A, right? I'd love to know, as you're thinking, as you're pondering, because I've already found you to be a ponderer and a thinker from this few minutes here. As you're pondering and thinking about God and Christianity, the Bible, all of those kind of things, what are some questions you have that we might be able to delve into? And understand that my approach, my perspective may be different that you find in a lot of Christianity, and that's because of where I'm at in the Untangled journey. And so hopefully maybe that can give some different insight than you might normally get to some of those questions. So I'd love to know, what are some of your thoughts, questions, things that you'd like to know? Maybe we could just dive into.
I just like I said before, we were like not recording.
Right. Yeah.
Like I said, I struggle with the concept of death.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm like a really naturally curious person. So, when I think about it, it's like, I don't know where I'm going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And like, there is this concept like heaven and hell.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I know who God is, but like, will we actually go there? Like, what if it's all pitch black? What if we're just laying in a casket until he does come back to earth?
Okay.
As it states in the Bible.
Yeah. So I guess there's two ways that I might go about answering that, right?
Mm-hmm.
One is, first I could kind of determine, my first would be like, all right, let me kind of see what you think about Jesus in the Bible and things, and then I could affirm for you the things that Jesus in the Bible said. But I'd like to go a different approach, right? And here's my approach, right? One of the things that I think has been most interesting about Jesus's teachings is that Jesus seems to think the concept of heaven doesn't start when you die.
Mm-hmm.
It actually starts here, right? Did you know that?
No.
Right. When Jesus comes, right, that's quite literally what he starts preaching, right? He starts walking around and everybody's like, what is this dude talking about? He says, I came to preach to you the kingdom of heaven, right? Now, if we were to put that in today's language, Jesus walks out and he says, yo, I'm about to tell y'all how to have the kingdom of heaven on earth. I'm about to tell you how to have heaven on earth, right? So I think one of the things that maybe might help, right, is we tend to think of pitch blackness, right? Mm-hmm. But let's see if we can reframe it a little bit, right? One of the things, I'm big on core analogies. Mm-hmm. And a core analogy is how you understand something, right? If I say wave, right? If I say they were doing the wave, you probably thought, right? And then you might have thought of, and that's based off water and wave, right? Mm-hmm. But if I said, no, when I said they're doing the wave, I meant like this.
Wave, hello.
Yeah, right. You see how that changes what you might see, right? And so for me, one of our core analogies around heaven is that heaven is not like here, right? That's what we know, right? That's what everybody would tell you. Heaven is not like here, right? Is that fair?
Yeah.
But what's interesting is Jesus actually says, I want you to bring heaven here. So in Jesus's mind, heaven is actually like here, but only the good parts, right? Mm-hmm. That's how he describes it, right?
Yeah.
Heaven is like here, but only the good parts, right? So what if you began to experience heaven here, right? What if we began to look at all of Jesus' teachings, all of Jesus' writings, and then every day you woke up, he says things like, I put my joy in you. And when my joy is in you, your joy is full. So you wake up every morning just like smiling ear to ear. Like, kill it. Yeah. That'd be, right. And then he says things like, my peace I give to you, right? And so what if you had just a never ending moment of peace as you walked around, right? And then he says, they'll know you're my disciples because of the way you love one another, right? So what if you just had great friends and relationships, right? And what if that was your life here, right? And then what Jesus said is, hey, heaven is like one never-ending moment of all of those things, right? So even if you ended in the grave, right, and there was nothing else, the moment you felt, though, was like a never-ending moment of joy, of peace, of great relationships. What if that is how you spent the rest of that time in your darkness, right? Or in the grave or whatever it is. What if that's what it felt like, right? That would make it less scary, right?
Yeah.
Right?
I think I'd be very content.
Yeah, right? And so that is actually how I like to think of heaven, right? Because Jesus literally says the kingdom of heaven has come. What he was saying is heaven is here right now, right? And then he begins to lay it out for us. Heaven is like this. In heaven, everybody cares about everybody. If you lose a coin, you go find the coin, right? That's what he does. That's what Jesus says, right? Like you lose a sheep, you go get the sheep, right? Like heaven is like a son who goes and does all kinds of things, but the father is still loving, right? He begins to tell us what heaven is like, right? And then he says the kingdom of heaven is here, right? So he quite literally is like, hey, you can experience those things here. And so what happens if we begin to experience heaven on earth, right? And then let's say there is nothing, right? But your last moment, all of your moments leading up to it and your last moment were just full of joy, peace, great relationships, friendships, amazing experience on earth. Maybe that might make death less scary, right?
Right.
Now we could talk about what Jesus said heaven's going to be like in the kingdom of heaven on the other side.
Right.
Right? But if you're not sure about what's on the other side, then I would say, well, let's talk about experiencing heaven right here, right? And maybe that would help as a way to deal with it. Is that helpful? Does that help? Is it actually helpful?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does it make you think?
Well, I mean, like, peace is very important.
Mm-hmm.
And so if like my last moment was full of like peace and happiness, I think I'd feel okay not knowing what's over there if I do make it to heaven. But yeah, I think I'd feel okay. But also, like, the Bible like says we have to do so like these great things and like be honest and love one another. And there are people who don't do that, and they just don't want to, and that's okay. I mean, live your life. You do.
I don't know if that's okay, right. But yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
Now me, no, but
right.
you,
yeah,
you do that. And so, but God is forgiving, but there's also a place called hell. So, if God is so forgiving, then why is there a place like that for people who don't do certain things?
I guess I would take a few different approaches there too, right? So, one, I think is we have to first. I think I would first need clarity on what you think hell is like, right? Or what when you say there's a place called hell, I'd love to know like what are you seeing? What is your what?
Well, Christianity, like the whole religion itself, describes it as like fire and like heat
and the worm that never dies,
right?
And the
just,
whole
you
deal.
just gonna be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me see if I can help with that a little bit, right? Okay. So, the word that we translate as hell in the Bible is this word called Gehenna. Have you ever heard this word?
Maybe once. My dad might have said it once or twice.
Yeah. Here's what may not tell you about Gehenna. Did you know that Gehenna was an actual place, right? It was a physical place, right? And it's where they went to burn trash. So literally, the fire never went out because every time the fire got ready to burn out, somebody would bring more trash.
Right, and throw it in the fire.
Right. That also explains the worms, right? Worms never dying because, of course, more trash, more worms, right? So I think it's important to understand first and foremost that it's a physical place, right? So what Jesus says is, hey, the kingdom of heaven, right? And he tells us what heaven's going to be like in all these different ways. And then John, of course, has the big revelation, new heaven, new earth coming down, all of this kind of stuff. But what Jesus says is, hey, if you do not live the way that God has designed for us to live, when we get to the other spot, you're going to be in a place like Gehenna, right? That's a physical place, right? And then it says, in other words, you'll be separate from everyone else, right? And but this idea of us viewing hell as eternal torment where your flesh is always burning and all those kind of things, changes when you understand Gehenna was an actual physical place. Right. And so when he says, hey, you don't do right, you're going to be staying over in a place like that. Everyone who was listening to him would have known. They would have been like, oh, I'm going to have to stay out. And you got to understand the culture, right? Back then, unclean and being separated and being recognized, publicly recognized as someone who is not following the law was a really big deal, right? So when Jesus is saying this to the people, they were going to hear, you know what? If I don't do right in the next world, I'm going to have to go live in a place where there's garbage everywhere. Like, right? And he's like, yeah, that's where you're going to end up. So they would have been hearing it differently than we would have been hearing it. Now, still don't want to live there, right? Still don't want to live there. Let's be clear. But it does change maybe how we view hell, right? And one of the parables, Lazarus and the rich man, we know, paints exactly that type of picture, right? Lazarus is actually talking and can see. He could see the rich man suffering, and the rich man could see Lazarus, right? So there's a chasm in between. In other words, he's separate from everyone else, but he could still see. And it's not the type of torment that we're thinking of. It's still bad. Let me be clear, because he's like, yo, can I go tell all my friends and everybody? Like, everybody need to know we don't need to come over here.
At all. Don't do it.
We don't need to come over here. But it's not the type of torment we were talking about, right? Now, so I think, number one, framing hell better can help us to understand that. Number two, though, that I would say is one of the things we talked about that I thought was really beautiful before the mic started rolling was you said you felt like that sometimes when you'll look at like a sunrise, it will feel like God saying hello to you. Right? Yeah. And for me, that was really beautiful because it made me, number one, it indicates, oh man, she believes in a God who can control things, that he's a good God, right? And that he cares about you, right? And so then I would say, Miss Trinity, if there is a good God who can control everything and cares about you, and you are worried that you might end up in a bad place, do you think that God, if he could control that, would let that happen?
No.
Right. But what he might do is if you decided you didn't want to do that, right? Right? Because think about how he describes heaven, right? Hey, heaven's going to be with me, right? You're going to be able to hang with me. We're going to be able to do all kinds of whatever God stuff does.
Right, we're going to
kick it. We're going to God kick it.
Sure.
Yeah, whatever that is. Yeah, God kick it. Yeah.
Keep it God.
God
keep it clean.
Okay, yeah,
keep
sure.
it clean.
Sure.
Yeah.
But that's what we're going to do, right? Well, if you're a person who's like, yo, man, I don't know you like that, right? I mean, that's truth, right?
Yeah.
There are some people, right, who didn't notice that sunset, right, who don't see the beauty that you are seeing in the world, right? Well, they'd probably be surprised if they woke up after death and they was like, wait, I got to stay where? What is happening, right? You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And so God would probably not be like, yo, you got to stay with me, right? But he's like, but if you stay in the other place, I don't know why you would want to do that. You should really want to stay with me. But if you want to stay over there, that's fine. Right.
Your choice.
Right.
You got it.
Right. And so I'm saying, as you think about yourself and you think about God and you think about how he cares for you, would you think he would let you go to that place, or would he make sure that you knew the way to be with him?
I mean, like, he tells us the way, like, how we can get there. But it's just, like, this unknown feeling. Like, I just don't like not knowing what's over there. And I know, like, we already talked about, like, having peace with that. I'm more at ease about that now. But, just, I know that, like, he's, like, here. Because, like, the only beauty you can really see in the world is within the weather. That's why I said, like, when the sunrise, like, that's why I feel like with God, like, he's just saying, like, hello, good morning. Because the world down here is not very pretty. It's not very great.
I don't know, right? Because the world down here has you, right?
It
and
does.
The world has your dad, and the world has my children. And, the world is this And I think what happens is, like I said, we do that, right? We paint the picture of heaven as not like here.
Right.
Right. So I think there's two problems that we have with our view of heaven in my mind. Number one, we paint the picture of heaven as not like here. Right. And so all we want to do is leave here. because that's what we tell her.
Right.
We tell heaven's not like here. The other thing that we do is we believe heaven is, to me, mixed up in this idea of eternity, right? So you'll spend eternity in this place that's not like here, right? However, Jesus says things like the kingdom of God has come to you, and he says this is how you get eternal life, right? And he talks about that from here on, right? And so for me, two things become apparent. Number one, in Jesus's mind, we can experience something like heaven right here. Right here on this earth. The other thing is that you can have moments of it, right? Well, what if heaven was not endless moments in a place that's not like here, but what if it was one never-ending moment that felt just like all the best parts of this place? Right?
Right.
That would be a much better way to view heaven.
Right.
And so for me, when we think about heaven, we may not know what it's like, right? But we are told it's like a never-ending moment of all the best parts of here, right? Like, I hope we're having a good conversation, right? Are you having a good conversation?
Right.
Okay, I'm enjoying this time, right? But on your way here, you had no idea what this conversation was going to be. In fact, I asked you, and you were like, I don't know what my daddy was talking about. He just told me to come, right? Like, you had no idea what this conversation was going to be, but he told you it was going to be good. And you came because you trust him, right? I think if we stop looking at God as a judge who's presiding over how much good or bad you did, and start looking at him, because he spends a lot of time, this blows my mind too, he spends a lot of time trying to make sure we see him as a dad, right? Like the Old Testament, he like, look, it's children of Israel. I'm a dad, right? He's like, the New Testament, he like, Abba. He's like, Jesus like, if a good father, if you give gifts, how much would the good father? He like, dude, I am a dad. God is like, I am a dad, right?
I'm a father.
And so if that's the case, right? If you went before your dad and you said, Dad, I'm worried when we go in this building, there's some places in this building that are bad. But your dad was like, oh, I'm not going to let you go that way. If you listen to me, I'm going to show you exactly how to get to the room where the podcast is with the cool gray walls, right? Like that. I'm going to show you how to get there. Now, you didn't know what it would look like, but you knew it would be good because your dad told you and you trust him. And then when you got there, it was hopefully better than you thought it would be, right?
Right.
Well, that's how I think we should think of heaven. Right? If we stop thinking of God as this judge, he's going to be like, look, Trinity, it's time. Whew. I hope you did it right. Like, he's not going to do that. Right? Like, that's
I hope you did it right.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? Like, but if we think of God as a dad who's like, hey, Trinity, I've been waiting on you. Listen, I'm glad you made it to the path that I told you. Come on in. I want to show you around, right? That's one thing, right? But if you end up on the other side of the chasm, he like, yeah, man, why you didn't go around? I tried to tell you to go around. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Like that's a different way, right, to think about God. And I think that takes a lot of the pressure off, right? Yeah. Because our core analogy for God, remember I told you core analogies, right? So we have two that I think are messed up. So our core analogy for God in general is that he does what he wants, right? And that's a little scary, right? Because anybody who just does what they want, you don't know what they might do, right? That's a little scary. But God actually affirms all through Scripture that he's good. So actually, our core analogy should be someone who only does good, right? And so if I said to you, hey, you're about to go see somebody who only does good, it's not as scary. You'd be like, he only does good. I'm fine with that, right? So the other problem is our core analogy of the Christian God, right? So in Christianity, we said God is your judge, right? God is the judge. Jesus is your friend. God is the judge, right? That's what we've done, right? Jesus is your homie,
right?
But God is, so he's something different. But Jesus says, yo, man, if you would give good gifts to your children, don't you think the Father, who is a good Father, would give better gifts to you? And then he goes on and says, you can call him Abba, Father. And then he says, when you pray, say, our Father who art in heaven. Jesus is trying to tell you, hey, God the Father is a father, right? Like, so we don't have to view him as judge. And I think that makes it a lot less scary, right? Because any father, right? Any father, I'm a father. If any of my kids came to me and said, Dad, I want to make sure, I really do want to make sure that I'm doing what you've asked me to do so that we can be together at whatever place, right? I'm never going to say to that kid, well, good luck. I'm never going to do that, right? Good luck. I hope it works out for you, right? Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say, oh, that's what you want? Well, then here. Let's work this together to get you to the point where we both want you to be, right? That's how God sees you. And I hope that helps with some of that anxiety. As long as you are genuinely in your heart, I have a gospel I use, and everybody will hate this one bit, but I call it the goodness gospel, and it's very true, right? Here's what I honestly believe. Anyone who looks for God while believing he's good, God will take care of. Right? Now, we might say, other people might, and when I say it to other people, I might say, we'll be saved, right? Because that's the term we use. But I like to say it that way, right? Anybody who looks for God. So right now, you're looking for God. I don't know if you know that, right? You're wondering what's it's going to be like. You're saying he's saying good morning to you. You're saying, I want to be in the better place. I want to do. You're saying all of those things. Right. I don't believe God's like, yeah, I hope that works out for you. I don't believe that, right? I believe he says, well, let me send you a dad who will help show you, right? Let me organize people who will come into your life and help you. Let me speak directly to your soul. Let me give you a good morning with a sunrise and let you know that I'm caring about you, right? And that's, for me, where you place your faith, right? Not in the knowledge of what the other place would be like, but in the idea that God, as you're looking for him, he's happy to show you, right? One of my favorite verses, he says, Acts 17, he says, God, like, I'm paraphrasing. This is the West version, right? Sure. He laid out history, geography, everything. He laid all that out from the beginning of time. Why? So that people might search for him and find him, even though he is not far from any of us, right? He's not far from any of us. And so if you're looking for him, he says, you look for me, you'll find me, because I'm not far from any of us. And so I'm saying, you're already doing that. So rest in that peace, maybe not in, oh, I hope I did enough good when I got there, right? Rest in the fact that he's saying, no, we're good. We're doing this thing together. Let's walk this thing all the way out, right? Does that help?
Yeah.
Does it?
It does.
Okay.
It does. I mean, honestly, because I just feel like, as like, especially if you're someone who like grows up in the church, because like when I was younger, I went to church a lot. A lot.
Oh, yeah. We don't want to compare church to lot stories.
We don't.
I got all kinds of church. All right. So yeah. All right. So
I went to church a lot when I was younger, and then we like kind of took a break. But I guess like in the church, they're telling you, like you said, like he's like a judge, and I guess sometimes it's like the way they make it seem, they're like, if you do that bad thing, you're not gonna go to heaven with me, and I'm just like, that's weird, because if God's like the Father, like, well, they say he's forgiving, so any mistake we make, it wouldn't be a problem necessarily. Yeah,
and in truth, those of us who believe in Jesus and the redemption and the crucifixion, then it's not only not a problem, it's already taken care of, right? And so, but you're right though, and that for me is what Untangled is about, right? Is recognizing, hey, we're not changing Christianity, but we've been looking at this lens the wrong way, right? When you looked at God, you saw a judge when he said, I'm a father. When you looked at Jesus, you saw death on the cross when he was like known as a teacher, right? That's what most people call Jesus, teacher, right? So we didn't see Jesus teaching life. We saw death, right? And when we looked at heaven, we saw it as not like here, instead of one never-ending moment of the best parts of here, right? And when we begin to untangle that, right, our Christianity feels lighter and freer, right? I'm not worried, and I hope you are not now, and hold that, right? I am not worried that somewhere along the path I'll get lost, right? Because I know God is good, and I want to be with him, right? And since that's the case, I don't expect that he'll be like, well, Wes, you just didn't. You know what? You should have read Luke 17. You read Luke 18. Good luck to you. I'm like, I'm not, no. Like, that's an insane way to live, right? But Jesus said things like, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. That doesn't feel easy or light. That feels heavy. And so I'm like, oh, how could we hear the message of Jesus in a way that feels light? You know what feels light? Hey, that's a good dad who wants to help you to be with him. So I think we got time for maybe like one more question. You got another one?
Do I got another one?
Yeah. Do you got one more? Was that hopefully that helped? But
it did.
Okay, all right, good.
Yeah. Okay. What was the question?
What
did you ask me? Because I was talking so long. I don't remember what you asked.
No. I asked you. No, I asked you what, and you said you struggled with death. I think was what it was, and so I'm just asking. Do you have any other questions that we might address with our time left?
The concept of like. First, let me ask you this.
Okay, ask me what. Yeah.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Okay, all right. So my simple answer is yes, but now I feel like a lot of explanation has to be given, right? And so my simple answer is yes. And I believe in ghosts because I believe in spirits.
Right. And are ghosts and spirits the same thing?
I think so. I do. I think so. And so my understanding of ghosts and spirits is probably going to take a long time to explain, and we probably don't have that. But here's what I will simplify it this way. What I believe is that the Bible seems to indicate that on the other side, right, if you look at Revelations, there it says people turn to Jesus and be like, yo, listen, how long are you going to let that stuff going on down there go on, right? So in my mind, those people can clearly see what's going on down here, right? But we also know that from Revelations and that it says that they're from every nation and every tongue, right? So we know that they are preserving their unique identity, right? Because how else would you know their ethnicity, their tongue, any of that kind of stuff, right? So on the other side, there are unique individuals, right? Their unique identity who can see what's happening down here. So in my mind, that sounds like a spirit.
It does.
Right.
But I feel like society perceives like ghosts and spirits for people to be like actually down here, you know?
Yeah.
And not looking at us from like up there.
Oh, I don't know if I think the verse says they say that to God, but I don't think that means that's where they stay. Right. And here's at the very least, right? I would say we believe in angels, right? And so angels are probably akin to spirits, right? And we know that they, in particular, came down here and talk to us, right?
They do.
Now, the word angel, that's what I'm talking about. We get told what an angel looks like. So when we hear angels, we see wings and all kinds of stuff like that, right? But none of the angels actually had that. None of them had that. Yeah. What they looked like were regular people, right? And so in my mind, right, angels would look akin to what we would describe as spirits, right? And the word angel actually just means messenger. That's not a race.
Right.
It's not a gender. An angel is a messenger, right? So it wouldn't be surprising to me. My dad died in 2011, suddenly, without expectation. It wouldn't be surprising to me if I was struggling with dad issues. If my dad came and talked to me, right? That wouldn't be surprising, right? Now, we might have to talk about how that works, right? Because I know, like I said, our society, as soon as you say you're talking to spirits, they're like, seance and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that yet. And I'm not doing any of that. But I will tell you a story. I will tell you a story that I think explains how I actually think this works, or can work, right? I actually think it happens in a variety of ways, but this is how I think it happened for me. I was driving around a few years ago, and I kept driving by my dad's grave, and something said, go over there. And I was really struggling with a lot of, am I being the best dad I'm supposed to be? Am I where I'm supposed to be in life? All those kinds of things. And so I get over to my dad's grave, and I'm just standing over it, and I just began to talk to him. I just began to be like, Dad, listen, I don't know about this. I don't know about that. I'm worried about this. And in the midst of that, all of a sudden, all of these words of wisdom, thoughts, things like this that my dad said to me just began to flow just into my mind and into my heart. And I don't describe. And the next thing I know, I am bawling like a baby. And I do not cry. I do not cry. I mean, my kids have probably seen me cry like twice in my lifetime, right? Like, I do not cry.
I don't need this.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not, but I am bawling like a baby, right? And I just began to say, I get it, Dad. I get it. All the things you put into me, I understand them. I get it. I understand, right? For me, that felt like the spirit of my dad talking to me, right? That's what it felt like.
Right.
Quite literally, I heard his voice. I heard his words. I was at his grave. That's quite literally what it felt like to me, right? Now, a lot of people will be like, you didn't talk to a spirit. And I'd be like,
you're right.
That's because of the way you view it, right? You think talking to a spirit means that some spiritual manifestation appeared before me and things like that.
And
but
you saw it and he was like right here.
Right. But we know ancient cultures viewed spirits differently, right? And here's how we know. When Jesus cast out sicknesses, they saw them as spirits, right? So for them, the spirit actually causes sickness in the body. You see what I'm saying? So for them, the body and the spirit were connected. So in the same way, if a spirit was going to talk to me, I would feel it in my body, right? My dad talked to me. I cried like a baby, right? And so yes, I do think ghosts exist. And we'd have to get into a real deep conversation if I want to keep expanding on it, because now we got evil spirits, all kinds of, and we don't got time for that. But my simple answer is yes. That's how I would perceive that, right? And and I wouldn't be surprised at all with how that works. And in my mind, nothing I said right there contradicts with a Christian belief, right? Now people will be like, we only need one mediator. It's Jesus. And I'll be like, yeah, that would make sense, except that we see angels come and talk to people even after Jesus raises, right? Angels come and talk to Paul while he's in the prison, right? Angel comes and talks to John. So we know Jesus, even as the mediator, still uses messengers to us, right? And the very fact that there's one mediator between God and man doesn't mean there's not a bunch of mediators between us and Jesus, right? Like, so my mother prays for me every morning right now by name. And she's in this mug like, Jesus, will you help my son? She's my mediator, right? Will you help my son stay on track? He be
doing
Jesus,
all of this.
Yeah,
You need to start doing that.
Exactly. And Jesus is like, man, I'm trying to respect his will, but since you ask, I won't let him make this mistake today, right? She's my mediator between me and Jesus. Now, Jesus is my mediator between me and God, but she's my mediator between me and Jesus, right? And so nothing I said in my mind clashes with any traditional way of seeing Christianity, but it is a different way because we don't normally think of it that way, because we're told any interaction with spirits is bad. But I don't think the scripture actually seems to say that's true.
Right.
Did that help?
It did.
Okay.
It did. Like, a lot of what you said resonated with me because I've also had a similar experience.
Tell me about it.
With, like, spirits.
Okay.
Because like I told you when we weren't on camera, which we should have been rolling.
I know. We covered a lot of ground.
We could have been rolling. But like, my uncle passed away in December, and I guess that was like really hard for me because he was like the only uncle I had on my mom's side, and he was just somebody who really got me, like really like understood me. Yeah. So when he passed, it was just like, wow. That's crazy. And at a moment, I was mad at God. I was, because I was like, why did this person have to be taken? Why couldn't you take somebody else? But then I was like, okay, he kind of did this to himself. So I can't necessarily blame God. But I guess that was just me grieving. But I guess like months later, he like my uncle, he was on hospice. So but they brought him to my house because he told the hospital people, he told them that he wanted to
die at home.
Yeah, he wanted to be with me.
Yeah.
He wanted to be with all of us at our house.
Okay.
So, that just kind of like traumatized me a little bit because he was there.
Yeah.
And I kind of experienced all of that. And so that was difficult. And so then after he passed and everything, we were still in that house. And we moved now, but we were still there.
Yeah.
And I was doing the kitchen one night because, you know, I got chores.
Well, I know.
So
15-year-old life, man. You
honestly,
just got chores. Yeah.
it's all these chores.
Tell my 14-year-old, because she get mad, she got chores. I'm like, oh, it keeps going. You 15, you got chores. Yeah, it just keeps going. Yeah.
Until you leave.
Yeah, until you leave.
You're
That's
still
exactly
here,
right.
though,
Yeah.
so you're going to do it.
Do the chores.
Yeah. But I was cleaning the kitchen one night, and I kept feeling like someone was watching me. And I would like turn around and there was nobody there. And I was just like, okay, maybe I'm in my head about something. And I kept thinking it was my sister trying to scare me because she likes to do that a lot. Sister or my dad.
Do that. Yeah.
My sister or my dad.
Oh, your dad, he's a scarer? Okay.
He loves to
I don't
do
play that game with my kids. They love the scare game. I don't play it. I don't do that. Yeah.
Yes. But so I just kept hearing it, and then I like felt something like nick my shoulder, and I'm just like I just flinched, and I'm like, what the heck was that?
Yeah.
And so I just kept like doing that, and like we have this like mirror, like I'm like the sink's right here. We have a mirror on the wall, and I kept seeing a figure standing behind a different wall, a really tall figure that looked like my uncle, but it wasn't him. Okay. And so I like rushed to my mom's room, like, Mama, and I'm like bawling. I'm really crying. I'm like, Mama, I keep seeing and hearing things, and I don't know what's going on. And it was like really scary to me. But then like looking back on it now, I'm just like, okay. Because I was trying to calm down because I'm like, I shouldn't be afraid that he's here because, I mean,
Right. He's your uncle. He passed.
Right. But I was just confused because like I never experienced anything like that before.
Well, yeah, and I'd love to talk more about it to understand it. But, you know, I think that a lot of people experience similar things. And what tends to happen is immediately we be like, demon. That's what we do, right? It's what we do.
Yeah.
Because we've been taught that anything spiritual like that is bad. But I think it's because we don't take the time to educate and consider that, right? We just demonize it that we don't know. And so, yeah, like I said, I mean, hearing it, I don't know, right? But I'd love to hear more about it and see if we could talk through it. But I wouldn't be surprised, right? And and one of the things I tell my kids, no matter what, is this: is if you see something spiritual that looks scary, you shouldn't necessarily have to, right? Because what you believe is that God is with you, right?
Right.
So anything spiritual that will try to mess with you, got to battle with him, and he's bigger, right? 1 John 4:4 says, "Greater is he that's in me than he that is in the world," right? And so whatever's out there, you don't have to be scared of it spiritually because you have God, right? And so that's how I would encourage you to think about that at least going forward, right? It's kind of like, hey, man, he's a dad, right? And if he's a dad in the spiritual realm, and there's somebody in the spiritual realm trying to bother you, he'd be like, I got that. Yeah, I got that. Yeah, you're good. I got that, right? So that's how I might encourage you to kind of think about that moving forward, right? And that may make that even less scary.
Yeah.
Well, Miss Trinity, I appreciate you chatting with me. This was fun. I had fun. Was it fun?
I did.
Well, good, and we talked beforehand.
We
too.
did.
I know. So we covered a lot of ground today. We might have to do this again.
We might.
Okay, I'll take you up on that. All right, I'll talk to you that. Well, thanks for being with me.
No problem.
Miss Trinity 15. Anything you want to say to the people before you go?
God is good.
God is good.
All the time.
All the
Wink.
time. Yep, I like it.
Wink.
All right. Thanks, Miss Trinity. I appreciate it.
No problem.